Likkutei Torah, Masei 176, first column. Twelve lines in the end of the first column. Okay, the Alter Rebbe asked the question, why does it say Masei plural when they only left Egypt with one journey? Also it says, what does it say Biad Moshe Aaron, especially a bunch of journeys where after Aaron passed away? And he says that the whole concept of the Midbar was Nocher, sort of Akrav, snake, scorpions, and the purpose of the Yidden was to refine the Midbar. And he explains that the evil exists itself from a very, very limited level of godliness. But basically what we need to do is starve evil, that evil cannot exist, period. So he says now, 12 lines to the end of the first column of 170.
You're supposed to control it?
Evil?
Yes.
Ban it. Get rid of it. Control our evil, yes.
No, control it or starve it?
Control evil is by starving it. That's the way you control it. Okay, let's see inside. Hine kol Masei Masei, the whole 42 journeys in the desert. To get the enemies to run away, that they shouldn't have any nourishment whatsoever from Kedusha. Hainu, has been a Yisrael Dafka through the Yidden. The Yidden's journeys, that were created in the image of Hashem. In other words, where did the Yidden have a power to get rid of evil? Because they're created in the image of Hashem. The Torah says when Adam and Isha was created, Hashem said, you should control the animals, you should control the fish, you should control the whole world. Therefore, everything that goes on in the world, how strong evil is or how weak evil is only up to us. In other words, Goyim can't strengthen evil or weaken evil. Evil is what it is. They can't do anything to it. Jews can strengthen evil by sinning, and they can weaken evil by not sinning. The Torah says two words. We're in the tselem, in the image, and in the dumus, in the form. That's the level of Yichud Ilah and Yichud Tata. The higher level of Yichud and the lower level of Yichud. He said, Dumusenu is Yichud Tata, which is Dumus Omada, which is only a vision. Shedmid Nidma V'nir Lanu added to Shemayim. V'chol Abruim B'chinis Yash V'dava. Sounds like this. A person was created, Hashem said, B'tzalmeinu Kidmuseinu. Kidmuseinu means a dumus is like an image of it. The image is not the real thing. So he said like this. Tzalmeinu represents the Aveda V'yid in Yichud Ilah. Like we learned, Yichud Ilah means there is no world, there's only Hashem. Then you have Yichud Tata. Yichud Tata means there's a world, there's the evil dealing in the world, and yet it's all bottled to Hashem. So he's saying Dumus, which means an image, it's not the real thing, it's only an image of something. When you make an image of a person, it's not the person, it's an image, it looks like. So that Dumus is Nichud Tata, that the world seems to be a separate entity, but really it's all Hashem. Everything is mamish, nothing compared to Hashem. It only looks to the physical eyes. It resembles. It's an image of it. So the Museinu, which is the second level, Salmeinu Kid Museinu. Kid Museinu, and her image represents the Aveda V'yid of Yichud Tata, meaning there's a world, but really the world is bottom. Salmeinu B'chinis Yichud Ilah. Salmeinu, though in our image, in our form, B'chinis Yichud Ilah is the higher level of unity. Shub'em is Klei Kula Kamei Klei Choshev. That the world is stuck in not existence. In other words, there's two ways of looking at it. The world exists, but it's bottled to Hashem. A higher level is, there is no world, there's only Hashem.
Salman is a semblance.
Yeah. And look what it says on the beginning of Rashi Amatis. So he says like this. A person has within him these two Avedas. Like he says, Kach ole b'tzayni yizbarich. This is what Hashem wanted. It entered Hashem's will. Live adam beis bechinas and now tzelem and dumus. Why didn't Hashem just create the world in a way that nothing exists but Him? Why did Hashem create a world? And He says, realize the world which exists is not really non-existent. So it says, because Ein melech v'lo yam dafka. Hashem wants to be a king. Now, in order to be a king, you need subjects. By definition, subjects means separate entities that are subjugated to you. Like it says, you can't be a king over your own children because your own children are an extension of you. They're not a separate entity that are subjugating themselves to you. They're an extent. It's the child is in place of the father. Now, therefore, a person could bring down these two levels, which is Seviv Kolam, meaning the world doesn't exist, and Memala Kolam, that the world does exist, but it's bottom.
What about being children or subjects of God?
We are both. Avinu, Malkeinu. You ever hear that?
Yes.
Avinu means our father. Malkeinu, our king. So we are children and subjects. There's an advantage of a child over a subject, and there's an advantage of a subject over a child.
What's the advantage of the subject over a child?
The advantage of a subject over a child is not bottled to the parent. A child basically loves the parent. Bittul is much more by a subject than it is by a child. No. No, in this level of Sefer, you speak Sefer relative to higher, yeah, but Sefer V'mal means world doesn't exist, world doesn't exist. Therefore, like we discussed last night, all the journeys were going out of Egypt. Even though they went out of Egypt with one journey, but it's always constantly going out of Egypt, meaning to leave the Meitru Gvul, to leave boundaries and limitations, and transform world from darkness to light on all seven midas. What do we say in davening? It's a pasuk. L'cha Hashem, to you is Gdula, Gvura, Teferes, Netzach, Chayid Yesod. Right? So we say in davening that L'cha Hashem Agdul. All the midas are bottled to Hashem. That means there are seven midas. There are 7 days that created the world, each day with that particular midah. First day was Chesed, second day Gvur, and so on. But it's all bottled to Hashem. This is what Hashem wanted. So Hashem wanted a Jew should constantly go out of boundaries and limitations, going out of Egypt. Now, sometimes you can have boundaries and limitations of evil, Mitzrayim of evil, and then you can have holy boundaries. Holy boundaries mean you learn every day 1 hour, but that's your nature. That becomes your boundaries. You want to go out of Egypt, you have to learn 1 hour and 1 minute, because then you break your nature. Or you give in the first minute 1 penny to tzedakah. Now you give 1.5 pennies. You cut them in half and then save them for the year. And not in a way of nalam, and not in a way of silence. In other words, the ultimate purpose of the 42 journey is to elevate evil of the world and transform it to kedusha. And again, like the Alter Rebbe will explain, it's not only limitations of evil, that's step number 1, obviously. But even when you have the level of holiness, you have to go out of your limited boundaries of Kedusha. Like the Gemara says, in Tanya Al Rebbe brings down, you learn the Gemara 100 times. You're learning Gemara 100 times. You're called not serving God, and you learn it 101 times. You're called serving Hashem. What's the difference? Because the nature in those days was to review the Gemara 100 times. So yeah, you learned 100 times, but it's still your natural boundaries. You're accustomed to it. You want to break your nature, you want to go out of Mitzrayim, you need to learn 101 times. And he says, so now he says like this, how do you get 40, so why is the cheshbon 42? So he says like this, you have the 7 midas. To elevate the 7 midas. Each midah is composed of the other 6. So it's interesting. Sometimes you have, like in Sfira Sa'im, is 7 times 7. Sometimes in Kabbalah and Chassidus you have 7 times 6. Like in Ana B'Chayach, you have in Ana B'Chayach, there's 7 lines of 6 words each. Right? That has to do with the name of Hashem that's called Mab, the name of Hashem, which is 42. So the 42 Masei, the Rebbe says, what's the cheshbon of 42 travels? Because you have to go out of the 7 midas, and each one is composed of 6, because composition of itself you don't count. Like chesed sheba chesed, you don't count, because it's all chesed. So then you count Vor sheba chesed, Tefer sheba chesed. So that's the cheshbon 42, and he says that's the level on the b'chayach. L'chein ha-Masei say misper mem beis. K'mei shem on the b'chayach gedula. Sheyesh b'zayim psukim, there's 7 psukim. Rabbi Nechuni ben Akane wrote on the b'chayach that there's 7 psukim, and each pasuk composed of 6 names. That's aliyah mimata l'mayla. Like it says, ubishtayim ya'efif, with the 2 they fly up. Okay, so therefore you have like this. 42 journeys. What's the purpose of 42 journeys? To elevate all 42 levels of each one of the midas. To go out of your boundaries and limitations of evil, transforming the negative midas to positive midas of Kedusha. And then he asked the question, why was it Dafka B'yad Moshe v'Aaron? I mean, there weren't the ways, there were the ways. The cloud was the ways. Google Maps showing him where to go. Why? Ki Moshe Yichudei Ilah. Moshe Rabbeinu is the higher level of Yichud. By Moshe Rabbeinu, world didn't exist. That's why Moshe Rabbeinu said, Me'ayin libasa, where in the world am I going to get meat from? Moshe Rabbeinu was higher than world. L'chein nikra Moshe, therefore he was called Moshe, kemin amayim mishisihu, because he was taken out of the water. So Bitsya, Basa, whatever her name was, the daughter of Parei, called him Moshe, because he was taken from the water. Min hamayim mishisihu. Now, l'chayre tzarich l'kreisi b'shem Moshui b'loshen Avad. In other words, like this. The Rebbe asks, Moshe is present tense. In just the way diktuk, according to Hebrew grammar, Moshe is present tense. If you say, I took him out of the water, he should have been called Moshui, which is past tense. Why was he called Moshe present tense? U'mal Moshe loshen Oiva. It alludes to the fact of Likkutei Lord Tamid. Shenimshech v'god laharav hamshach b'chinas ha'intzaf liyas mamalakam v'seiv v'kolalmin, that it should be both things together. Not only that, but like Chassidus explains, Moshe Rabbeinu was taken min hamayim mishisihu. So it says, what's the difference between water and dry land? We learned the revealed levels of God are called yabasha, dry land. The concealed levels of Hashem are called mayim, because you look at the water, you don't see anything in it. You just see the water. Moshe Rabbeinu min hamayim mishisihu says in Chassidus, Moshe Rabbeinu came from Alma Diskasia, from the concealed world of godliness. And in those realms, the only thing that exists is Hashem. There is no world. Therefore, because Moshe Rabbeinu comes from such a lofty level, and he reveals that level of godliness, he reveals that level of godliness within the neshamas. So therefore, he's able to, the travels had to go through Moshe and Aaron. Like it says, now, Ein alakatipes mayim ukanayis. It's like one drop of water compared to the whole ocean system. There's a Yiddish expression, you don't do anything, you don't accomplish it like a shpayin yam. Shpayin yam in Yiddish means a spit into the ocean. You don't add to the volume of the ocean when you spit into it, because it's so completely insignificant, it doesn't do anything. He's called al mebetel v'nechlom batzmusi yizbarach. So therefore, what is Moshe Rabbeinu? And Moshe Rabbeinu's level, world doesn't exist. So the journeys of the Jews to elevate the 42 levels of the animal soul, of Mitzrayim, and to bring Kedusha, that was done through Moshe Rabbeinu. That's where the Yidden were given the strength to overcome the challenges of the world, were through Moshe Rabbeinu, the Pasuk says. Kumela Marshal, Atipa Shiagula, a drop of water is round. He said, Kamek in order now makefetz v'sevefes kol alma mikol tzad. The same thing, this minamayim mishisihu, it's the level of water is also sevev. It's also round. O kamesha kazu hinei makim iti. O mekayim shalem rak sheni bastard nida v'nidma elam liyesh v'davar. This is only, the world seems to look like something, but in reality it's nothing. That level needs to be instilled in each one of us to realize that when we're traveling through the world, if world doesn't exist, it can't challenge you. Challenges can only be when something exists. If something exists, it can challenge you. Like, people are scared of the dark. Darkness can do a lot to a person, yeah? But darkness is really nothing. It's not that there's not a ferocious bear or a lion about to attack you. Darkness is absence. Darkness is nothing.
Obviously, it bothered Moshe Rabbeinu, if that makes sense.
What?
It bothered Moshe Rabbeinu.
Bothered?
Yes. He
What?
was angry.
Angry to what?
Be a screen.
The people, he hit the rock.
No.
So it affected him if nothing exists.
What? No. What affected him?
People complain.
The lack of doing what Hashem wants, or physical? What bothered him? Why did Moshe Rabbeinu get angry?
Because people...
In this week's Parsha, V'yiksiv Moshe, right? Why did Moshe Rabbeinu get angry? Not from physical world. People didn't listen to Hashem. That's Ruchnius. That's what bothered Moshe Rabbeinu. How could you not listen to Hashem when the only thing that exists is Hashem?
He hit the rock. It's a physical thing.
What made him angry? Because Hashem told him hit the rock. Speak to the rock.
Speak to them.
No. But what made him angry? Not Gashmias. The fact that the Jews didn't listen to Hashem. Gashmias didn't bother Moshe Rabbeinu.
No, it's saying the physicality had an effect on Moshe Rabbeinu's life.
Yeah, because that's what Hashem wants us to deal with, physicality. But Moshe Rabbeinu says, Me'ayin li basar. Moshe Rabbeinu Pasha Shmei says, Lo yichamer echad, well, he said by Dasan Aviram over there in Balak, Kairach, story of Kairach. He said, Lo yichamer mi'achad me'em nasar, I never took even a donkey from them. Moshe Rabbeinu was only bothered by Ruchnius.
Did that rock change the life of Moshe Rabbeinu?
No, the hitting of the rock. Not the rock. The action of doing something Hashem didn't tell him to do. Not only that, on our level, there would be no problem hitting the rock. What did Hashem scream at Moshe Rabbeinu? You didn't sanctify me by the rock. Why? Because he hit it instead of speaking to it, yeah? hitting the rock wouldn't sanctify Hashem's name. When was the last time you hit a rock and water came out of it? You ever hit a rock and water comes out of it? So that's not a sanctification of Hashem's name? Why was Hashem angry at Moshe Rabbeinu? Because on his level, if he could have done it more by speaking to the rock, would it accomplish a bigger Kiddush Hashem than hitting the rock. So hitting the rock wasn't an Aveda. On Moshe Rabbeinu's level, hitting instead of speaking, it's still sanctification. Hashem says, because you did you didn't sanctify me. He didn't sanctify Hashem hitting a rock and water coming out of it. And water of Beder Shel Miriam, you know how much water that was? They used it for the mikveh, they used it for drinking, they gave it to the animals to drink. It was a ton of water. When was the last time you hit a rock and that happened? On Moshe Rabbeinu's level, Ruchnius, not Gashmius. Chassidus marvels at the concept. Moshe Rabbeinu is speaking to Parei. Yeah? Parsha Shmei, right? He's speaking to Parei. So Chassidus explains, Moshe Rabbeinu is Almedis Kasya, Moshe Rabbeinu Chochmah Datzilus, Moshe Rabbeinu Min Hamayim Mishisiyu, the ultimate level of Kedusha, and he's talking to the ultimate pits of evil. In one room. Chassidus marvels at that. And so to speak, look at this. Ultimate Kedusha communicating with ultimate evil. Li Yerder and Yisrasin. I made them, I made myself, I made the... Okay? Tachlis Bittul talking to ultimate Yeshus. It's a marvelous concept. Why did he have to talk to that? Because he had to break the klip of Mitzrayim, to get the Jews out of Mitzrayim, to get ready for Matan Torah. Only Moshe Rabbeinu could do that. Who can give the koyach to the Yidden in the 42 journeys that they don't get affected by it and they're moving Masei all their journeys? Moshe Rabbeinu. Why? Because he comes from the super high level and therefore he can instill that level within the Jews. Tzalmeinu K'Museinu.
His mind is Shamayim all the time.
Ishu Elikim. The Medrash says it's not. The Medrash says Ishu Elikim. In Zeis HaBrach it says Moshe Rabbeinu. Chetzi Elokim Chetzi Adam. Okay? There was Chassidim, Reb Pesach Mal discovered, they say he was a greater chassid than Reb Hillel, Parisher. Why was Reb Pesach a bigger chassid than Reb Hillel, Parisher? So Chassidim used to say because Reb Hillel, Parisher was half Rebbe. Hillel, Parisher was half Rebbe. So you know who's a greater chassid? He's 100% chassid, he's 50% chassid because he's 50% Rebbe. So chassid, Reb Pesach was greater than Reb Hillel. A lot of people, Rabbis are coming to Chassidus. But the Chassidus that's really on the only Chassid whose Chassidus is brought out in Chassidus was Rabbi Hillel.
Why God reacts to Moshe? It seems that when he hit the rock, I understand the reason was because he underlined showing God's whole able.
So that's not enough to get upset about. It's not enough to get upset about.
No, it's unnecessary for God to get upset for Moshe's
Why?
Moshe
Moshe Rabbeinu's, 1 second. The Pasuk says in Chumash, Moshe Rabbeinu says on himself, Anechi emi beinechem el bein alekechem lahagid lochem es dvar Hashem. Moshe Rabbeinu said, I am the intermediary between God and the Jews to bring you the word of Hashem. That's what Moshe Rabbeinu was, right? The intermediary. Hashem spoke to Moshe, Moshe Rabbeinu spoke to the Yidden, yeah? The intermediary's job is to bring the full level of godliness to the people. if the intermediary brings 90% of godliness to the Jews, is he doing his mission 100%? That's why Hashem got angry at him. Not because he sinned. He didn't sin. I mean, yeah, he didn't listen to Hashem, but for us, it wouldn't be a big sin. It wouldn't be a sin at all.
It wasn't consequential.
It's consequential.
The only thing consequential
Act and react.
was that it somehow did not show God in its full glory.
In other words, he could have sanctified Hashem more by speaking to the rock instead of hitting the rock.
Correct.
But like we learned, when you learned the Medrash, he did speak to the rock. It was the wrong rock.
God could have made it up without punishing Moshe. Could have made it up. He could have
God-
done something else to show his good.
God could have told him, hit the rock. And then it wouldn't be a problem.
So the next Israel, one of God's Israel is to do roofing. It's not for Jaffa oranges.
No, but B'nai Brak, matzah maybe, I don't know.
It's all about roofing.
Yeah, but in the Ruchni is in Gashmi. That's the difference between the Midbar and Eretz Yisrael. The Midbar was Ruchnius. The thing was Gashmis. Eretz Yisrael, that's why the Meraglim had a problem. And like we discussed yesterday about the class, B'nai Gad and B'nai Reuven weren't that bad because they said something like this, something like this. Okay.
Wow.
It's not going to work.